Our top focus as of now: over the past 12 days, Israeli troops have encircled Gaza City, effectively cutting the coastal enclave into two as they look to hunt down and eliminate Hamas fighters. According to figures released on Wednesday, 31 Israeli soldiers have been killed during the Gaza ground offensive and more than 260 injured. Gaza officials say over 10,000 people have been killed by Israeli forces since October 7th, 40% of them children. The defense minister, Yoav Gallant, said that Israeli troops were tightening the stranglehold around the city of Gaza.
Gaza is the biggest terror base ever built by mankind. This whole city is one big terror base. Underground, kilometers of tunnels that connect to hospitals and schools connect to each other. They include communication rooms, ammunition storages, places to sleep and all of it, in order to act as a basis of terror from which they can hurt the citizens of Israel and soldiers of the IDF.
The Israeli army released a video of what it said was the location and destruction of tunnels in Gaza used by Hamas. Remember, Gaza's narrow web of streets has doubled underground by a dense tunnel network known to Israeli troops as the Gaza Metro. Some tunnels are as deep as 100 to 130 feet below ground, allowing militants to change position away from the danger of the skies. Rocket batteries hidden just a few meters beneath the surface can be uncovered with a trapdoor just for the time it takes to fire a salvo. Israeli forces gave a small group of foreign reporters a rare view of their advance, driving them along sandy routes churned by tank tracks to the fringes of Gaza City. Blackened windows, shattered bedrooms, pockmarked walls. Israeli strikes in some cases have demolished entire city blocks. Hamas's military arm, the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, showed what they said was close fighting with the Israeli forces on the streets of Gaza. Hamas has accused the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees of colluding with Israel in the forced displacement of residents of Gaza. Thousands of Palestinians are fleeing south from Gaza City on foot, in some cases carrying nothing but the clothes on their back. The Israeli army has told Palestinians in the north, where it is battling Hamas militants, to move south. Already, more than 1.5 million people in Gaza have fled their homes in search of safety, and the exodus has grown as Israel's air and ground campaign intensifies. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs stated that about 15,000 people fled on Tuesday, compared with 5,000 on Monday and 2,000 on Sunday.
Sorry, it's under these circumstances.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called on Israel not to reoccupy Gaza once its war with Hamas ends. Earlier this week, Netanyahu and Israel would take overall security responsibility for the territory following the war.
The United States believes key elements should include no forcible displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Not now, not after the war. No use of Gaza as a platform for terrorism or other violent attacks. No reoccupation of Gaza after the conflict ends. No attempt to blockade or besiege Gaza. No reduction in the territory of Gaza.
The Israeli government stated that it was still very premature to discuss post-war scenarios, but that Gaza would be demilitarized and must never become a terror nest. We are now being joined by Anthony Lowenstein, an independent journalist and author of The Palestine Authority. Mr. Lowenstein, welcome to WION World as One.
Thanks so much for having me.
Right. Now, Blinken has mentioned a united future Palestinian government for Gaza and West Bank. What does this mean? Is it even possible at this point of the war?
Well, certainly not now. I mean, one of the things that Blinken seems to be suggesting is that the Palestine Authority, which is a deeply corrupt body that rules nominally in the West Bank for years, which is hated by many, if not most, Palestinians, should somehow potentially also control Gaza. It's kind of delusional because huge amounts of Palestinians in Gaza will not accept the kind of despotic rule that they've had, their brothers and sisters have had in the West Bank for years. And one of the problems, of course, is that for many, many years, the Palestine Authority essentially has been what Israel has wanted to use. They've kind of outsourced the occupation to Palestinian movements, such as the Palestine Authorities. In other words, Israel has complete control of the West Bank, can go in and out, takes people, kills people, arrests huge amounts of people, including children. And somehow that's the model for Gaza. I mean, it's just frankly offensive and delusional because many people in Gaza who are now being forcibly removed from the north of Gaza to the south will have nowhere to go in a corrupt Palestinian Authority-run administration. So it's very concerning that the US is putting this forward as an idea.
Right, let's talk about the dynamics between US and Israel as of now, how they stand. The US has always been Israel's staunch ally, especially in this war. But now, do you see friction or discord between the two on the Palestinian issue?
Look, rhetorically, obviously, the US is trying to suggest that Israel should not, as you just played that clip from Anthony Blinken, reoccupy Gaza, because there are key people in the Israeli government who want to reoccupy Gaza, who want to bring back settlements, which Israel pulled out around 20 years ago. But I think the broader question is, as you always say as a journalist, follow the money. And the rhetoric is one thing, but America has been sending huge amounts of weapons to Israel since October 7, a resupply of various weapons that Israel is using in its brutal war against Palestinians in Gaza. So honestly, I don't really see much of a friction. I mean, yes, rhetorically, there may be a slight difference in what Blinken is proposing, which therefore means Biden or Netanyahu and his government. But practically speaking, where it matters, weapons and on a diplomatic front at the UN, America once again has Israel's back, which I think is disastrous because ultimately, in fact, what America is doing is making lives for Israelis worse. Blind support for an ally is never a good thing. Never a good thing.
Right, those are some very valid points. Just another question. Gaza, of course, has been likened to a graveyard for children. Once and if this war is over, what will be left of Gaza? And another question, who will reconstruct Gaza?
Look, it's such a good question. I mean, one of the most devastating aspects of the last month has been just a huge death toll. I mean, 10,000 civilians at least. There's huge numbers of people, no doubt, under the rubble. I have friends in Gaza, Palestinians. I'm a journalist who's been to Gaza often over the last 15 years. And the people I speak to, the ones who are alive, have had their homes destroyed. They have no connection to Hamas, zero. They often don't even support Hamas, but their homes have been destroyed. Often their kids don't have enough food or water. So what Israel is doing is breeding multiple generations of more hatred and distrust. And by doing this kind of brutal bombardment, backed sadly by virtually the entire Western world, they're actually being the worst friend of Israel, not its best friend, despite what America and much of the West might think that they're doing.
Mr. Lowenstein, thank you so much for all that analysis, and thanks for joining us on WION World as One at this hour.
Thank you so much for having me.
WION World as One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.